Yeah, let me tell you a story. My assets been seized, my bank account shut down, couldn't use my cards abroad. Two hyperinflations in my lifetime is what I experienced. Those in control will never work on bringing more freedom to the individual. Right now, only 3% of people leave outside the country where they were born, which makes your home country government a 97% monopoly over you. Bitcoin per citizen will probably become nobody can seize my assets. Good, let's all in.
Say Bitcoin goes to 500,000 or goes to a million, or say it goes to 5 million eventually, which
The safest I've ever felt was
Miss Katie, thank you so much for joining me here today. I want to first talk to you about the privacy attacks, some of the things that are happening just with the governments around the world, EU, really here in America, different spots around the world, and privacy just kind of being under the microscope, and people not understanding their privacy and their rights to privacy and why it is so important. So I just love some of your thoughts, just high level of what you're seeing when it comes to just this intrusion we've seen just take place for decades, really, but just really kind of coming to a forefront right now.
I mean, definitely everything, all of it is coming from the control perspective, right? Especially when it comes to financial privacy, because they keep saying that's for your safety. We all know that's not true. The safest I've ever felt was the 12 words in my head and nobody being able to access or censor my transactions. But with what we're seeing coming out of EU was the capital control. That's what it all is about. The financial privacy is no longer exist because they need the capital control. They need to know who you're paying, what are you paying for, how much you're willing to pay and able to pay, and how big of a cut they can take. So that's definitely the case. And I'm seeing more and more of it coming to fruition, specifically out of EU, like Spain, Portugal.
Yeah.
We can see that they're no longer able to withdraw cash, or you have to report why you had to withdraw more than $2,000 a month. And it's like, are you for real? This is my
Wow.
money. So yeah, the move away from cash into digital world without privacy was like a big downside on human rights. And now we're looking way out of it. And of course, Bitcoin is one of the tools, and it's still not easy.
What is the what are you hearing just from people, I guess, inside the EU really? But I mean, like you said, I was under the impression that this was going to be happening, or they were trying to do these bail-ins or taking people's savings or whatever, in the fall or whatever it was. I don't know. I know they're trying to reintroduce or introduce the CBDCs, or just there's all kinds of stuff going on there. But what are you hearing from people on the ground? People are being locked out right now? Even do you know if there's bail-ins actually happening right now? Like this is wild.
That's definitely an interesting thing for me. I barely read, well, I try to read news, but mostly I read them on Twitter. But what I do have is like 5 to 8 consulting calls from people all over the world every day
Mm-hmm.
telling me what their issues are and why they're looking for a second passport. So what's coming from Spain is really interesting is they have a really high tax rates. That's one. But another funny thing is their tax officers work on commission. So it's basically how
Mm,
much do you bring
wow.
in is how much you take home. And this is
Jeez.
just a crazy incentive to be this shark officer. You just go for people and go after their savings. And I'm thinking, well, that's a crazy job. But because of that, we see lots of Spanish citizens not just relocating, but willing to renounce their like get rid of their Spanish citizenship just so they never have to talk to those officers ever again. And of course,
Wow.
renunciation is always a huge step that involves
Yeah.
big paperwork, but that's just what they're willing to go through to just get rid of this surveillance of Spanish government.
That's incredible. Yeah, and we were talking offline, and I saw your video did. I think it was I don't know, a month ago, or a couple of weeks ago, about Argentina. I would love for you to just touch on some of the developments with just Latin America, because again, it's I feel like we can all feel it to a degree, like Bitcoiners can, like Africa, Latin America. It just feels like so ripe for the taking. So I'd love for you to touch on what's going on there in your world when it comes to Latin America.
The thing about Bitcoiners is we're looking for much longer term trends than people who are looking about tomorrow. So if we look at the trends, The lifestyle in some of the European countries is still incredible. The lifestyle you can't achieve in most
Yeah.
of the Latin
Yep.
American countries. But let's look at the trends. The EU is going down. I mean, obviously, very woke agendas. The whole anti-energy thing, we know that's not going to
Mhm.
work out for them. Um, Open borders, welfare system just through the roof. Like I just read a report this morning that 13% of residents of Germany are non-citizens, and they end up taking 48% of welfare.
Wow.
Yeah. So the non-citizens barely bringing anything, but taking away lots of welfare. And the Prime Minister of Germany just announced that, hey, we can't withstand this level of welfareism, if it's a word even.
Wow.
So and I've been seeing it within my friends groups even, right? So I hang out with a lot of
Hmm.
immigrants here in the US. Some of them are Ukrainian,
Yep.
and they report how their families living in Germany completely off of welfare, and they fully recognize that it's not sustainable. They're coming from a post-communist country, so they're like, this
Hmm.
is insane. The fact that they've been giving an apartment, insurance, all the stamps for food, etc. They don't have to work for years. Like they recognize that that's not okay, and that's how the country is going down. So now let's look at trends. Yeah, the lifestyle in some European countries is still great, but the criminal is going up. The surveillance on your transactions on your capital and capital control is going up. So where are we moving? Now let's look at Latin America. Yes, they had the whole mañana mentality for a very long, but we now seeing countries popping up like the first flowers after the snow when the snow melts, and like Argentina and El Salvador are these flowers that are leading the way clearly. Yes, they are coming from civil wars and socialist agendas for decades, but they are moving in the right direction. And if you're trying to optimize for the next generation, make sure that your kids grow up and live in a beautiful country and have access to all this um, capital freedom, financial freedom, then you have to look at something that will come to fruition in 10, 20 years, not today. So just watching all that unfold is really fascinating to me. And interestingly enough, you can there's this book how countries get out of poverty, by a German economist, and he analyzed how Poland and Vietnam came out of complete post-communism poverty so quickly that nobody expected. Poland is doing the best out of all the EU countries these days. And of course, it's the privatization of property, the lack of capital control, the support of commerce. And if we look at Argentina and El Salvador, that's what they're trying to make happen right now. El Salvador is just fascinating to me. They're a small country, able to make such quick moves and swings, and they are coming from this really dark place. So the changes we see are just fascinating. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. Not in
Hmm.
our generations for sure. So I'm really bullish. I want to see more of that, and I keep a very close eye on El Salvador.
The world is changing. Privacy, sovereignty, and freedom are no longer optional. They are essential. If you are still holding your Bitcoin on an exchange, you are vulnerable to your Bitcoin being frozen or the Bitcoin not even being there. In a world of broken trust, a fallen world, we need to be able to know through code, through math, that we have the keys to our wealth. We don't need to trust some third party. We don't need to trust some government. We don't need to trust some ruler on high that they're going to have our wealth and not censor it from us. Just ask European Union how that's going right now. And that's why at Foundation, they're building Bitcoin tools that are open source, privacy first, and actually simple to use. It's the only kind of Bitcoin crypto tools you should be using. The Passport Core is a Bitcoin-only hardware wallet, probably made in the USA. The only one that I know of, fully air-gapped, no Wi-Fi or Bluetooth to compromise your keys, with a large screen, seamless QR workflows, and encrypted micro SD backups. It is here for the average person or the advanced cryptographer as well. Along with your purchase, you get the attachments, the USB-C cord, the iOS and Android attachments, micro SD card, and the USB-C cable. You don't have to go searching around for everything. You also get the free Envoy mobile app as well. You can buy Bitcoin straight into your self-custody. It helps you set up your Passport core, label and track your coins, manage your keys, and do so much more. Foundation built the core and their company for sovereignty and freedom for all of humanity. You can take back control of your money and your digital life now. Get started today at foundation.xyz/Brandon, foundation.xyz/BRANDON, or check the link in the description. It's incredible. I mean, for people that don't know your background, I would love for you just to briefly touch on, because I'm sure there's going to be a number of people that have heard your background, but it just makes me think of like, where is this all going? I mean, you come from a world where this has been tried. A lot of these things have been tried. And like, we know the end game. We know what happens to governments, to people when we go down these roads. It blows me away that with all the information we have today, that we're still, we just can't seem to learn these lessons. So I would love for you to just kind of extrapolate, I guess, just, on your background for a second, but also the importance of this and people being able to move around and escape these worlds where people just can't seem to learn these lessons. And like the EU is going through.
I was born and raised in post-Soviet Russia a few years after the fall of USSR. So I very much remember, like for us, we recognize my family raised me very entrepreneurial because the career ladder did not exist. The only people who could make
Yeah.
it was through free market capitalism to be entrepreneurial. Because prior to that, all they've seen was the communistic setup where my grandfather was literally holding off a place on the same spot in the manufacturer for my dad to basically for them to work opposite shifts. And that was like, that's what he saw for his child. Well, my dad said, well, I'm going to college and I'm getting a law degree and it's going to look different. And my grandfather, he didn't talk to my dad for 2 years after dad decided to go to college and not work at this manufacturer for the
Wow.
rest of his life. So this communist mindset was like a generational memory, but in my parents it switched and they saw a different lifestyle and they saw how quickly they moved into this new realm. And for me, like I could see that switch through generations, right? Very communistic grandparents who are like very much atheists, right? God didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Not just didn't exist. If it existed in your life, you were sent somewhere. So, and
Yeah.
then my parents switched and they did everything the opposite way for me and my sister and like raised us completely entrepreneurial. So for me, I have this generational memory stuck with me, and there's no chance I'm going back to that. Neither my kids. I will make sure to spread that. And a few weeks ago, I had a podcast with Walker, and I mentioned to him, like, look at all the girls in Bitcoin. It's like half of us are from post-Soviet countries, like Natalie
Yeah.
from Poland, Carla
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Romania, myself, and like huge representation of post-Soviet countries. So the reason for that is this generational memory of knowing we're not going back. And you can definitely see the same happening in El Salvador, right? Like they've been in civil war for 40 years. Like
Mm-hmm.
there are lots of people I'm sure who don't like the current president, but they see the facts and they know that they're not going back to the point where a child is not able to play on a street, like can't play soccer on a street
Mm-hmm.
because the gangs will pick him up. So this generational memory will also play a huge role. It's trauma, it's generational trauma that
Yeah.
works in the opposite direction to make sure that we're not going back there.
It's incredible. And that's, wow. I didn't even think about putting those pieces together with the ladies, and just how many, 30 something, 40 something, post-Soviet ladies there are in Bitcoin. I didn't even think to make that connection. So that's really incredible, but you're spot on. What, so somewhat tangential off of this, but what do you think, like, with whether it's El Salvador or whether it's, strategy or some of these companies or, things like that, like, how do you see or think this will affect the citizens? Because obviously one of the big, infighting with Bitcoin obviously is, you got like the status, number go up Bitcoiners, right, versus cypherpunk, so it's like, how do you foresee this affecting? I know this is kind of like a big grandiose question in a way, but it's like, how do you foresee this divide or this fight, I guess, between these legacy entities and just the government institutions themselves versus, I guess what I'm trying to say in a way even is like, you've seen this, whether it's from the post-Soviet world to like, if the government's owning assets, like, is that really going to play out, or even El Salvador, is that going to play out in your mind to the benefit of the people? Like, how do you see this all kind of coming about?
Well, I can see a very long-term trend, and that's gonna go towards a
Mm-hmm.
smaller government, smaller nation states, free market competition between micro states, but that's like probably a couple generations away.
Yeah.
What I see right now is this slow adaptation of them realizing, okay, we can't control this thing, we can't shut down this thing, we have to stack because the GDP is no longer a really good sign of what's happening, and Bitcoin per citizen will probably become a very solid standard very soon. So like El Salvador doesn't own that much Bitcoin if you compare to like even things like MicroStrategy, but for 6 million
Mm-hmm.
citizens of the country, like this is
Yeah, per
very
capita.
solid
Yeah.
stack, and they keep stacking, which is great. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's just the first thing you do, right? Like as an individual, you did the same. It's not that you quit your job and got fully on Bitcoin standard off of your first stack.
Right.
If there was an adaptation period, you kept earning in fiat, stacking Bitcoin, etc., etc. And at some point, you get to the point where just holding part of your Bitcoin while spending the rest of it still gets you to a better point tomorrow than you are at today. And nation states that are early will probably get there as well. How this will happen? Well, that's going to be an interesting one. Some nations will definitely adapt faster and better. And I'm somewhat impressed with the US trying to adapt because this is
Yeah.
a giant machine. Like
Mm-hmm.
making a change in US policy is almost impossible. You have to go through
Yeah.
so many hoops. And, like, yeah, it's for the good reason there are checks and balances, but at the same time, it may work against you when you try to make a tiny change. And then we have a president for a tiny little 4 year term where they don't have to think long term necessarily. Like, all they have to care about is the next 4 years, not 40 years from now. So the lack of low time preference there as well. But they are willing and are able to make certain changes, and I'm curious to see how it's going to play out.
So I'm from Michigan, and obviously, for anyone who knows U.S. geography, or Michigan in general, obviously Detroit, the auto industry was here, and the last 50 years have been, went from like the biggest city in the world, or one of the biggest cities, to brain drain. People leaving, people, and just getting destroyed. Things being, whether the unionization and just really poor leadership in the governments. Brain drain is very real, and that's the concern, being in America, that I have just for America as well. And again, you see this all the time, and this is where, like, if the best and brightest people are leaving and they're like, hey, we're not being treated well, even from state to state, they're out. And so you guys see this all the time. Do you think that, like, and again, I know it's already happening, again, you deal with these people all the time, but do you think, are you concerned at all, being in the US, where it's like, hey, we get to a point where if people aren't treated well here, Bitcoiners, and they might just really start fleeing in mass? And maybe, what are some of those countries, even besides El Salvador, that you're like, hey, you're treated pretty well over here, and we see people going there?
The capital control is what will make Bitcoiners leave. And the United
Mm-hmm.
States has citizenship-based taxation and a lot of power to stop Bitcoiners from being able to leave. Not in a way that they can stop their transactions, but in a way that they can stop them physically. So that's something very real. And on the other side, the United States is still the highest earner country, right? Nobody in the world
Mm-hmm.
makes the salary that people in the United States do. So for us, US residents, US citizens, it seems easy for us to leave because we already know we have the cultural understanding of the United States. We're still able to work US jobs, we're still able to serve US audience, and make the earnings in the US while not living here. But the majority of the world is not here. And that's why we see this huge interest in H1B and L visa, in investors visa in the US. So there's this like huge part of the world that is still willing to give up so much to just come and be here in the US. And it's a very desirable place to be. for most of the world, very desirable. So I don't think the United States will start truly losing capital and talent just yet anytime soon. And again, the United States is adapting to lots of things. So I'm really excited to see that, because at some point, like probably last term, I was like, okay, if this is happening again, then yes, we're in this
Hmm.
bad trend. Like this is happening. We're
Yeah.
going downhill. But currently, with the new policies that are somewhat quote unquote crypto friendly, I obviously don't like to see all this, but again, it's a learning curve, it's an adaptation period. There's some misincentives here and there, of course, and but I just happy to see that we're somewhat moving in a good direction, and that makes me want to say that no, they will figure it out. They will get to the point where we want to stay here. And recently, I got questioned, how can I be loyal to any of the countries? Um, if my whole message is everybody needs a second passport, and I got this question from an authority, like a U.S. officer, and
Oh
I was
wow.
like, well, do you want me to have this loyalty because of monopoly on violence? Or do you want me to have this loyalty because of my commitment, because of my choice? Because I
Hmm.
personally can live in any country of the world
So
right
good.
now. I can pick and choose whatever I want between my skills, my knowledge, and my capital. Like our family can relocate anywhere, but we're choosing to be here in the United States. I'm in Texas and I love it here, and I felt
Hmm.
it feels like home. It feels very right, and I have this conviction. So I have my loyalty because I choose, not because of your monopoly on violence, and that's a free market of jurisdictions, and I that's how I want this to be for everybody in the world, not just for those with my skill set. So yeah, I had a very precise answer for that, because I was very much questioned on how I can be loyal to this country.
Yeah, and yeah, it is a great question. What was the response when you said that?
Well, it was it was taken well, let's say that.
Interesting. Very interesting. I mean, but it is, I mean, it's a great answer. I mean, that is the answer. I mean, man, I love that. What do you see? What's the biggest pattern in someone that you see? So kind of going along with this theme a little bit, what's the pattern of the person that you see? Either maybe they're in the US and they're getting second passports, or maybe they're in the EU. And I guess every place is going to have a different, if the EU, if they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff with your savings, that's going to maybe be the genesis. But like if you see Americans, obviously, I would say 50 to 60% of the people that watch this show are in America. So what's the pattern, I guess, or the type of person that's generally getting a second passport
Yeah.
that is American?
I definitely have trends for different parts of the world. In the EU,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say EU citizens move within EU a lot more
Mm,
lately. So they just relocate to a country. They don't need to do any immigration. It's very easy to become a resident of another
yeah.
EU state as a EU citizen. So those who are willing to relocate, they're just going for a better taxation, more freedom, etc. Now, those in the UK are living. They're going for Dubai, they're going for Switzerland, they're going to the US. So the UK is out. There's like very few people are willing to stay and fight, and well, I'm not sure if I would be at this point with two kids and one on the way. I don't think
Yeah.
stay and fight is my strategy right now. And in the US, it's truly a Plan B passport. My US clients are staying in the US, they're living in the US full time. They're truly optimizing for an emergency scenario, in which case they're completely not on the same page with the US government, and they just not willing to take that risk.
What are your thoughts on switching a little bit subjects here? What are your thoughts on the we mentioned strategy earlier, and just some of the Bitcoin treasury companies, and just kind of what we've been seeing over the last year or so? Is that affecting anything that you guys do? I mean, just I guess just overall thoughts on the Sailor and Metaplan and some of these companies, what they're doing, maybe what you guys are doing, but maybe also how it's affecting your business, or people from those worlds maybe coming to you guys. Like, where do you see this kind of marriage and just maybe overall macro thoughts on it.
Not much yet. The interesting thing that I see is it's almost funny. Like, for example, Caribbean countries, they are having a really hard time understanding Bitcoin. But the moment they see
Interesting.
stock in your brokerage account, even though you literally hold the stock for the sake of them holding Bitcoin, then they're like, "Oh, this is great. That flies through AML, anti-money laundering, no problem. But if you were to
Yeah.
hold
Yeah.
Bitcoin, we would question that." And that's just funny to me.
Oh
So
man.
that definitely made some cases simpler simply because people hold some of their wealth in those stocks, and we don't have to proof source of funds Bitcoin, proof of funds Bitcoin, etc. But what my concern recently was is, again, I'm not constantly on Twitter 24/7 anymore. I'm a mother. I have business
Hmm.
to run and all that. So I will go into some people's accounts and they have like MSTR, MSTY in their profile bio and absolutely no Bitcoin. And I'm like, wait a second, is there
Mm.
this entire like class of newcomers this cycle who completely
Mm.
got in for the number go up technology? So they see the number go
Hmm.
up in MicroStrategy, they buy in, they never learn the fundamentals of why Bitcoin matters and why the number goes up. And again, this is like just an educational point where we have to realize that lack of like censorship resistance is important. Being unseizable asset is extremely important. Like self custody is one of the main things Bitcoin brought to us, and now you're giving that up with MicroStrategy. So while I'm nowhere to be to tell people how they should do their what they should do with their money, etc. But understanding Bitcoin should be like prerequisite of being able to buy MicroStrategy, because if it's not the case, that's gonna be a sad thing.
Yeah, it just makes me think of Gladstein's Check Your Financial Privilege book. I just think of it so often, especially obviously us being here in America. You see so many people that you just we're very blessed here that we don't need to get it. A lot of people don't have to get it, quote unquote. And there's a lot of people around the world where it's a financial lifeline
Yeah.
necessity. And it's just that gap is wild to me. Like that bridge between those two groups of people or different groups of people is wild.
Yeah, it was
Um,
really easy for me to understand. The moment I learned enough about Bitcoin, it clicked. And I realized that
yeah, I
my
bet.
point of entry was like much lower. I needed to understand, okay, nobody
Mm-hmm.
can seize my assets. Good, let's all in. I don't need to
Bingo.
know
Yeah.
anything else.
Yeah.
While in the US, it's like,
Yeah.
well, nobody can seize my assets. I've been having, like, it's in my Chase bank for the last 45 years and
Oh my
nobody ever
gosh.
seized it. And I'm like, yeah,
Oh,
let me tell you a story.
yeah. Yeah. Well, it's crazy. I mean, like I have, buddies or insurance or like different stuff, and I've had fights. I mean, like, real heated like arguments of there's like, well, it's guaranteed, my insurance that I'm selling you, stuff like that. And it's like one stroke of a pen and these things change, guys. I mean, like it's, God love Joe Carlasari. Like I've fought with, him, debated him many times where it's just like, he's like, well, it was like, I remember years ago on Spaces, it was like, the CBDC thing was like really coming up. And this is when like, I think like Natalie Smolensky and Sam Callan were doing putting out a lot of reports and, things like that. And it was just really like a topic in Spaces, right? When, like you said, last administration. And it was like, Joe would come in and God love the lawyer. I'm married to one. And he's just like, well, that's against the, the code and this and that. And I'm just like, Joe, like what in your right mind makes you think they're going to follow that code? No, what country is following the codes and the law? I mean, that to me is just, whatever.
Yeah, he
That's
needs
yeah.
to
So
go
yeah, I could
watch the Big Short movie and all those AAA
love
mortgages,
you, Joe.
like,
Oh
yeah,
man.
it,
They're going to follow them until they don't. Right.
yeah.
Oh boy, oh boy. Gosh, what do you think? So we were talking. I mean, I think one of the big things too is just how this changes the dynamic. Like where, so we were talking offline of like, say Bitcoin goes to 500,000 or goes to 1 million, or say it goes to 5 million eventually, which a Bitcoiner knows. Again, it's just inverse of the money printing. So eventually, it's at some point in the future, it will hit these prices, and the purchasing power will continue to increase. What are your thoughts just on, you know just people looking for not only passports, because is it violence on the rise? Is are Bitcoiners hated at that point? Like when you kind of look out, like you said, I mean, you're a very good long-term thinker. What do you see down the road for Bitcoiners that are trying to protect themselves and just kind of escape? Like I said, they learning from history, but also saying, hey, I might not be the most wanted person around, or I might be the most wanted person around. I guess how you look at it. So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, well, we'll definitely have to learn all those strategies because, again, Bitcoiners are going to be wealthy, but they're not going to be the first wealthy people ever, right? So there's
Mm-hmm.
very fiat
Yep.
wealthy who have to protect themselves in many ways, and they have to interact with bureaucracy in the legal world, with setting up trusts, setting up jurisdictional layers of protection for their funds, setting up the structures for inheritance. And Bitcoin being the teenager, like in its teenage years,
Mm-hmm.
we are still not fully there. And like there will be new ways that are self-custodial, that are on chain, to be able to build those old school structures on chain. Like one of the things that I'm pretty bullish is time locks. I'm sure this time locks
Mm,
thing will get into great inheritance protocols, great
yeah.
force hodls, and just like, well, range attack, there's still nothing I can do for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Like it's under the time lock. So all those little things, all these old school legacy systems will get built out. And we're already seeing this, right? With Anchor Watch coming out and other similar protocols. Like it's happening. It's just going to take time, creativity. And interestingly enough, it's going to take the old world legacy system experts who got down the rabbit hole. And it's kind of a funny thing because we have lots of like we're young. You and I are young. We
Yeah.
we learn Bitcoin while being very young, so we may not have 25
Yep.
years of experience in the traditional legal world. Um, but there will be those guys who come in and say, "Well, yeah, I've done it for 30 years, but I've gone down this rabbit hole." And I see how this is lacking, and maybe we can build it out.
Mm.
So just bringing the old school expertise to a new world understanding is necessary. And yeah, it will be interesting to see.
Everything you are learning in this episode is completely moot and does not matter. If you hold Bitcoin and are still leaving it on an exchange or sharing keys and your KYC information with a third party, this is your wake up call now. You are only self sovereign if you alone hold the keys to your wealth. 100% self custody sounds daunting at first. Believe me, I lost 2 years of massive gains over a decade ago because I was worried about taking the few minutes it took to understand self custody. And that's exactly why you need to talk to my friends, Tony Yazbek and his team at the Bitcoin Way. We just interviewed Tony recently, has over 80,000 views, an overwhelming response. People love his story and the simplicity he shares of how easy it is to custody and take ownership of the greatest money we've ever seen. They'll train you to do it right the first time. Head on over to thebitcoinway.com/Brandon to schedule a free 30-minute consultation today. Their 5-star rated service is exactly what you need. Quit sitting on your hands like I did and get started today. Again, that's thebitcoinway.com/BRANDON. Now that you have the professional team in place, you need the professional tools to store your generational wealth forever on a titanium C plate. Your 12 to 24 words are your generational wealth. That is the key for your Bitcoin, no matter where you are in the universe. Go to Stampseed, code Brandon at checkout for 15% off store wide. This withstands fire, flood, nuclear fallout. We shot hockey pucks this thing. Don't become a statistic and put your generational wealth in paper. Go to Stampseed now, code Brandon at checkout for 15% store wide to secure your generational wealth forever. Yeah, it's gonna be just. I think about like just legacy, well, assets, I guess, but just the trust, like you mentioned, things of that nature, and it just really like. What are your thoughts on just trust in general and some of these estate planning and how Bitcoin could really change it? Because theoretically, it's it can be outside of all those things, right? Like you don't like where are you going to find it? How are you going to get it? Court system, like the court can hold you over the barrel, obviously, for maybe as long as they want to. So that is a risk. But like, how do you see it? I guess maybe have you seen it really changing at all? Are people kind of coming in to kind of what you're alluding to and really starting to say, hey, this is we got to go this way. We got to marry these two worlds together.
Yeah. Well, there are already systems to give inheritance outside, not through the court system, but outside of the court system, right?
Mm.
I believe it's called uh, ear something trust, irrevocable trust, maybe.
Oh, irrevocable trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the reasons Bitcoiners go through a revocable trust system is because they don't want everybody to know how much Bitcoin their kids hold after they
Right.
die. And it's like the moment it goes through
Hmm.
a court system, it's in public records, and now like all your wealth is exposed, and it's not you who will take the risk, but your children, and you don't know at what point they're going to be in life. Do they understand how
Yeah.
much wealth they're holding, etc., and do they understand what self custody is? So I do like the co-custody solutions that are out there, where the custodial is not able to move your funds or do anything with your funds, but is able to have your back in case of emergency. So those are interesting, but I honestly feel like I'm just not an expert in this field too. Like I can try and hope and be creative
Hmm.
and all that, but my expertise lays in passports.
Do you think, do you see anything of like a demographic? Because I always think of like Bitcoin too, that it'll be, like 10 years from now, I think it'll be so like our kids, for example, right? Like they only know Bitcoin. They're only going to know Bitcoin. They don't know anything else. And that demographic shift, I feel like whether it's passports, whether it's Bitcoin, just these legacy assets, is going to be such a massive shift when the silent generation and the boomers really sunset and they're out of the spotlight, so to speak, and they're not controlling things. I can't see it any other way where it's like you said, it's gonna like education just chipping away at things. But in 10 years, 15 years, it just, I don't know if there's an iceberg flipping moment. I don't know what your thought is on that when it just changes all of a sudden or just kind of flips, but it's gonna happen in the next 10 or 15 years because of the demographics. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting to see because right now we're still very much outliers. So at what
Yeah,
point does
yeah.
Bitcoin becomes the foundation and not the outlying assets anymore?
Hmm.
Will that require the governments to fully recognize it all around the world? Will it require to just everybody holding it and it's like certain percentage of citizens choose to just hold their savings in it? I actually don't know, but yeah, kids are much easier understanding digital assets and online transactions. Now, it's on us to let them know how important it is to self custody. That's always the biggest risk that I see is us giving up custody as not a very important feature of Bitcoin because it is the most important feature of Bitcoin in my opinion, at least one of the two. So that's definitely on us to highlight that. And again, some citizens like of less developed world will get it right away. Um, it's like good times, weak man, bad
Yeah,
times,
yeah.
strong man. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, no truer words ever spoken, that's for sure. What are some of the warning signs that are your country is on that path? I mean, for I feel good. You're here in America. I'm here in America, so I feel good about that at least. So that's a good sign for me at least, and whoever's watching in America. But what are some of those warning signs that you've seen again, experiencing yourself on other parts of the world or talking to other people? Like, what are some of those telltale signs, those red flags where it's like, hey, your country is starting to go down a really precarious road here. Let's figure this out, or we're gonna have to get out. I'm getting a passport. I'm out of here. So like, what are some of those telltale signs, I guess, that people should be looking for?
I mean, seeing the US purchasing or acquiring 10% of Intel is like, whoa, what is happening there?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of
Yeah. Wow.
weird.
I'm glad you brought that up. I totally forgot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really weird.
But the
Yeah.
biggest thing is like lack of free markets or suppression of capitalism, entrepreneurialism, all
Mm-hmm.
that, because that's truly the foundation of free market. And if citizens can't trade, then who can? And who are the judges? And who is establishing the price? So anything with price control, welfare system is always an insane sign. So right now in the US, for example, we have a really crazy coming down on political asylum seekers. It used to be that
Mm.
political asylum seekers would get approved something like 7 out of 10. My prediction is it's going to be 1 out of 10 in the next 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're really coming down on asylum seekers. Um, and that's again because of the welfare system, because it must be sustainable. We must be supporting those truly need. And again, why are they in need? Like I can have the entire argument
Mm-hmm.
of like what got them there, what life choices, um, because there's definitely that truly blows my mind in the US, because I've never met anybody on welfare in Russia, funny enough. There are a lot of supporting programs. For example, for you had your second child, you get like $6,000
Mm,
bonus that you can use for mortgage, for third child, etc. So there are definitely programs in place, but I never met anybody who's on like food stamps or things like that because of the stronger family unit. Like usually it falls onto a younger or
uh,
older generation to pay for that person. But here I realized there's like this entire plast of people who are not even considering finding a job. And when I realized that's a
uh,
thing, you don't understand. It was like mind switch for me because I never even I never could come up with this idea. So that obviously needs to end. Um, and I don't want to sound not empathetic or anything, but again, most of those people are the life choices brought them there.
yep, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the life choices mixed with the culture that they're in, or what have you, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's incredible. Do you think that there will, everyone, the price is what gets people in. It's what it really draws people in, obviously. The fear and greed thing, and it's one of the biggest marketing arms of Bitcoin, obviously. But uh, I would love for you to touch on just like the freedom aspect of Bitcoin. And we did a little bit already, but I think that, like, again, this marriage between the number go up part, but also like there'll always be value. That's why people are like, I feel like a lot of people miss the boat, whether it's even Bitcoiners or just, obviously 99% of the population, they miss the fact that it's unconfiscatable money. Like it's permissionless, trustless, and that can't be overstated. Like a lot of it's just glossed over. I mean, right? Like we're in our echo chamber and we just kind of gloss over it at times, but like that will always be valuable for someone really anywhere in millions of billions of people around the world to have money that can't be taken away from you. So I would just love
for
your
sure.
quick thought on that.
Yeah, well, we should be as loud as possible regarding the self custody topic.
Mm-hmm.
Just we should never get complacent in it. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes I feel like I don't have to tell people they need to have a second passport. Everybody knows, but
Right.
that's not the case.
So
And I don't
true.
have to tell people to self custody because
Yeah.
everybody
Everyone knows what I
knows.
know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but in reality, it's not true,
Mm-hmm.
and people still opt in for Coinbase and just thinking they're gonna invest in Coinbase for the rest of their life, and that's just not the right strategy.
Yeah.
So we should never shut up about it. Just unapologetically show self custody, educate people on self custody, and that's how you get the first world countries to keep the important things of Bitcoin alive. Because again, the developing, underdeveloped countries of the world will know that. The people in Venezuela do not question that.
Mm.
They understand that if government has an option to seize their assets on a long enough horizon, it will be seized. And I grew up with this mindset: on a long enough horizon, my money that can be seized will be seized. So the only way for me to keep it is to have it in an unseizable way, which is self-custody Bitcoin.
Could not agree more. It's we need to be addressing that more and more. The self custody aspect. What scares you the most? Obviously, there's a lot of just typical infighting in Bitcoin, which is good. It's healthy. Like you need this stuff like that. But what is there anything that scares you inside of the Bitcoin? It could be in the passport space, obviously as well. Like, is there something that you're, I don't know if fearful of or just scared of is the right term necessarily, but there's something like you've been keeping your eye on and just in any of these different areas where you're kind of like, that's a little concerning and we need to keep our eye on that more. Aside from the self custody, what we just talked about.
Well, it's kind of on the same topic. So
mm,
I could never see how 6102 could work out
mm,
until recently. And now I'm like, okay, we're a pro crypto nation now. And the Bitcoin reserves are popping up in different states and on the nation level, the Federal Reserve level. So now, after how many years are they going to say, well, look, we've been custodying Bitcoin just fine. It's safe. Now we're going to custody everybody's Bitcoin. You guys can trust us. Look, it's on, we have Bitcoin reserves for 6 years now. So that's like this whole Bitcoin reserve thing is in some way for me a way for 6102, for next 6102 on Bitcoin. Because I don't know, that could be an attack vector for sure.
mm. and we have precedent for it right here in America, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yep.
yeah, it's mind blowing to me that people again just kind of whistle by the graveyard and don't think these things can or will happen. So, wow, what makes you kind of a two-part question in a way, but like what makes you most bullish about just again the freedom movement, people moving themselves, what you guys are doing at Citizen X, and maybe just the Bitcoin market itself. Like I always think of again, I go back to the marketing arm of just like price, and you have like the Jeff Boost, and it's 900 trillion. It's got to account for all the money in the world. Or Jack Mallers, it's 450 trillion. That's the addressable market, and then everyone's got their thoughts in between there. But like, what are you most bullish on when you kind of zoom out and look at everything? And is it really going to be price? Hopefully that drags people in, and we're not dealing with black swan events and crazy trucker protests and Dutch farmer incidences and all these different things where people are getting attacked or privacy attacks. Like where do you kind of stand on just all of that, I guess, and just your hope for, hey, maybe it is the pricing that draws people in, they get educated, and we go that way, an easier way, hopefully, than the attacks. um, Long-winded question, but I would love your thoughts on just any of that.
The monopolist of the market will never work hard to bring a free market into place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those in control will never work on bringing more freedom to the individual. All those have to come from the grassroots.
Yeah.
So the self sovereign movement is basically us taking control back in little ways. And once we do so, once we actually like you having multiple passports basically limits your reliance on one nation states and making you the customer. Now you're able to pick and choose where you shop around for state services, right? State service provider. So by doing so, you're basically forcing a free market competition on nation states. So this whole sovereignty movement for me is truly the grassroots movement towards bringing more freedom to everybody in the society by taking control on you as an individual. So that comes into play. We require better schooling system. Right now we basically have to homeschool or
Mm-hmm.
find different options, private schooling, etc., or educate children on our principles outside of school system. And again, take control over our children's education so the
Yeah.
system overall can benefit. We have to go out there and buy passports to basically force our nation states to do better and to attract us in a capitalistic way where it's like, look, I provide better services at a better price and you want to be here. Again, it's not the monopoly on violence that makes me stay, it's my commitment and my choice that makes me loyal to this country. So, and same with Second Amendment, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like that's why we hold guns,
Yep.
because otherwise there is a complete monopoly on violence. And who are they to stop if they can take more?
Yep.
So that all these checks and balances have to come from sovereign individuals wanting a better future for the children. So I'm bullish because we build more and more sovereign tech, sovereign systems, um, and just force this free market competition on the authorities.
It's amazing. I love it. That's the rant right there. The freedom go up. The Second Amendment, everything. It's so true. Wait, so you mentioned this earlier too. The politicians kind of coming to you, and in the passports thing, I think that my question kind of was like, what are Bitcoiners? Maybe what's something that you think Bitcoiners are missing when it comes to even the passport stuff like that? I'll say the one thing I'll go first is just even the element of keeping governments in check, right? The politicians coming and speaking to you, and the thing that kind of I don't even notice, or I feel like a lot of people don't notice, is just like you getting a passport in general. It's not like you don't have to leave. Like it doesn't even mean you have to leave, right? Like I think people sometimes get caught like, well, I got to like go somewhere else. Like no. Like the passport, even just buying, is a signal to the government. So I think that's such a great signaling mechanism. Like you said, the number of guns bought, the number of passports bought, the number of Bitcoin bought, those are all data points for the government being like, okay, we're doing something wrong. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
and right now only 3% of people leave outside the country where they were born, which makes your home
Mm,
country government a 97%
wow.
monopoly over you.
Wow.
So, of course, this accelerates now being able to work remotely. The COVID was a huge accelerator
Hmm.
of that too, where the
Yeah.
government realized, wait a second, now they can literally go ahead and choose where they live and where
Yeah.
they work from. So us just truly exercising our right for to pick and choose a better future, a better government state service provider at better price is what bringing that free market capitalism to nation states.
It's incredible. What are some like common, like Q&A or misconceptions or people when they're coming to you to talk about passports and moving countries? Like what are the biggest maybe fears even? Like what are people generally coming to you with? You see just kind of a pattern of like, hey, I get this a lot when, I'm talking to a new person.
Well, many things that it's truly for like extremely wealthy because this jurisdictional arbitrage game was truly for like
Mm,
beyond imagination wealthy.
yeah.
It wasn't easy to execute. Now we're talking about some countries selling passports for 100 grand, 300 grand, and it's much more affordable. Another thing is there are other paths to citizenship. For example, you have European ancestors. Let's look through your lineage. Let's see if we can claim that. Same for Latin American ancestors. Some countries have the citizenship by descent program for Latin America as well. On top of it, you can still relocate on like digital nomad visa or financial solvency visa. As long as you make over a certain threshold, the country wants you to move there and spend your money there. They don't even ask for any donation or investment. So any Latin American country will welcome you as a resident as long as you make $2,000 to $5,000 a month. That's all you have to prove. Um, and then another thing that I want to mention, knowing another language sometimes is
Mm,
also a game of jurisdictional arbitrage. Um, just being able to travel abroad and having the community, having a bug out home will also be your hedge against certain emergencies. But yeah, the biggest one is forewarned is forearmed. So if you can analyze your attack vectors and threats, if you can recognize them ahead of time, if you can put something in place to hedge against those, is it just makes you stronger in any situation. So forewarned is forearmed.
it's incredible. What got you like what was really the real genesis of you going down this path in the first place? Obviously the things you experienced and just in life in general, but like just, stumbling. Uh, a twofold question. What were some of your aha moments with Bitcoin and just understanding that you touched on that before, like how quick you got it, but having plan B initially and now, you're selling it to Citizen X, but like, I would love just the genesis or like the aha moments of you with Bitcoin. And also, hey, I'm going down this road and starting this business to help people.
Yeah. Both of those beliefs in Bitcoin and in passports were with me before I became a Bitcoiner, basically.
Mm,
Again, my assets been seized, my bank accounts shut
yeah.
down, couldn't use my cards abroad. Two hyperinflations in my lifetime is what I
Jeez.
experienced. And then at the same time, my visas got constantly rejected for absolutely no reason. I'm a 16-year-old
Wow.
in a Russian national team
Yep.
traveling for World Cup. Why would you reject my visa? Like, I'm 16 on a team invited by a
Yeah.
World Cup. So I was really lucky to experience all this shitty situations because it got me to the point where I was a big winner before knowing it and where I was a passport lady before knowing it. And then I was just at the right time in the right place to learn enough about Bitcoin early on and just became a Bitcoiner. And then on Twitter, I was constantly just telling everybody you need a second passport. I had nothing to sell. I was just extremely passionate about this concept of flag theory,
Mm,
and I
yeah.
just kept talking about it just through Twitter. And people seem to recognize that. And like after a year and a half of just constantly sharing my expertise on the topic, I realized that I have the audience and I have the expertise. I
Yeah.
just don't have a product to sell. And that's how Plan B Passport started.
It's incredible. Such an amazing story. Where should Bitcoiners, and again, this is nuanced, but like what are the top, couple places that maybe people are going or and I don't know, maybe you can't say, but I was gonna say like what are the top, places for Bitcoiners to go or some places that treat Bitcoiners friendly, that maybe have the same ethos. Like what are you seeing when it comes to just across the world?
For traveling, highly recommend the Bitcoin spots because, again, you can travel to fiat world and see beautiful things of the past. That's definitely an awesome trip, I'm sure. But if you want to hang out with like-minded people and that's the reason for your trip, just go to those Bitcoin tiny
Mm.
communities, and that would be El Salvador, Costa Rica. It would be some places in Mexico too. That's a great spots to be. For passports, I am bullish on Schengen outside of EU. So basically, Serbia is a great option. I don't think
Mm.
they will ever join EU, but they're in the Schengen area. They're outside of Eastern European conflict and outside of EU, which makes them in this like very unique position. Although somewhat getting involved in the Eastern European conflict. Latin America, super bullish trend wise. Of course, El Salvador leading the way, Argentina catching up. There, I'm sure there will be other spots like Paraguay, Uruguay, coming into play as well. Um, I would choose like if as an American, if I were an American, I would choose El Salvador or Argentina for my citizenship for the next 10 years.
Community is the number one most important thing in a survival situation. And newsflash, you're human, so you're in a survival situation. October 10th through the 13th is your island retreat. Camp Nakamoto, brought to you by Mass Adoption. I will be speaking there. Nellie Brunel, Mark Moss, Larry Lepard, David Foley, James Lavish, BJ Dichter, Luke Broyles, Michelle Weekly, and many more will be there to have fun. Lots of games, activities, Cattleman's Feast, crab bakes. There's going to be everything you can imagine in this beautiful part of northern New Hampshire. We look forward to seeing you there for 15% off tickets. Gentile 15, Gentile 15, Gentile 15. There's only a couple dozen remaining out of the 100 plus that were available, so get them now. The very next week, October 16th through 18th, will be the Canadian Bitcoin Conference. This is an awesome conference, Bitcoin only as well. The Rialto Theater in Montreal, Quebec. The inaugural Canada versus USA Bitcoin hockey game was won by our team, the good guys, last year. So we'll be playing again on that Thursday, having two incredible days, Friday and Saturday. They're going to have unbelievable speakers there. Francis Pouliot, Larry Lepard, myself. We're going to have Jeff Walton. We're going to have Tomer Strolight, Brad Mills, Adam O'Brien from Bitcoin Well. It's going to be an absolutely incredible time. So check that out here, the link as well, and we'll share it in the description just like everything else. We cannot wait for our family to meet yours the 10th through the 13th and the 16th through the 18th in Northern New Hampshire and Quebec. We'll see you there. Yeah, and I think it's amazing too because it's like you said, it used to be just for the uber wealthy, and it just is important to emphasize again that people from really all walks of life are doing it now, and it's I don't know if you call it democratized necessarily, but it's much different than it was. So I think it's such a great tool we have now. So and what you're doing is amazing. Community is the number one most important thing in a survival situation. And newsflash, you're human, so you're in a survival situation. October 10th through the 13th is your island retreat. Camp Nakamoto, brought to you by Mass Adoption. I will be speaking there. Nellie Brunel, Mark Moss, Larry Lepard, David Foley, James Lavish, BJ Dichter, Luke Broyles, Michelle Weekly, and many more will be there to have fun. Lots of games, activities, Cattleman's Feast, crab bakes. There's going to be everything you can imagine in this beautiful part of northern New Hampshire. We look forward to seeing you there for 15% off tickets. Gentile 15, Gentile 15, Gentile 15. There's only a couple dozen remaining out of the 100 plus that were available, so get them now. We look forward to seeing you in October. What kind of importance do you place on, you have young children? I would love for you to just kind of unpack a little bit just your thoughts on surrounding yourself with the right people and, your children and raising them and building a stronger society. Because at the end of the day, I mean, we're in this mess because of that, right? Like the destruction of the family unit, especially here in America, and not having the right ethics, values, you name it, and just being all over the place. So what are your thoughts on this? I know that this is, near and dear to your heart for, I've seen you talk about this over the years. So I would
Yeah,
love for you to just unpack this for a minute.
great question. Because I realized that 5 years ago, I was so much more concerned about this topic than
Mm,
today. And the reason I was so much more concerned because I was much more exposed to people that I don't want my kids to hang
mm,
out with. And at this point,
interesting.
everybody in my network is has the same mindset as me. So like right now, I'm not gonna sit here and tell my 3.5-year-old why he has to, self custody and why he has to eat beef because of the macros and because of this. All I can do is lead by example. And then
Hmm.
I'm, of course, one of the two biggest role models in his life, but there are all these other people that he gets exposed to that also affect his life. But at this point, I have zero concern because I come to my friends' houses, they eat the same food, they talk the same language, like in terms of
Hmm.
utilizing the words. They they parent similarly, so there's no concern to get exposure to people that I don't want any influence on my kids. And that's just the beauty of Texas Village. We have great
Hmm.
community here, and yeah, great sisterhood of moms. Everybody's pregnant again. We all having young
That's
children
amazing.
together. It's been beautiful.
Thank you so much for joining me today. What any last thoughts and where people can find you and what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so citizenship, second citizenship is a security model, which means you have to customize it just like you customize your Bitcoin security model depending on, are you a public person? Do you travel a lot? Do you need inheritance or not? All that. So with Passport, it's the same. Let's look at your family composition. Let's look at your attack vectors and threats. Let's consider the desirable lifestyle in case that you need to relocate. Let's look into all these pieces, look into your family lineage and come up with a strategy that makes sense for your family. So, yeah, the best thing is start getting educated now, start putting strategy into place, and execute it step by step. You don't have to go all in and buy $1 million passport tomorrow. You can start small, do your lineage, get a residency elsewhere. Then, as Bitcoin price increases and you feel more comfortable spending some capital on that, get there. But yeah, it's a strategy. It's definitely a multi-year strategy.
Where can people find you?
Twitter, I'm Plan B Passport on Twitter. We also have a really good online resource, which is citizenx.com. Take pride in transparency. So the full pricing for any family composition, you can just create your family profile and see it. You also can schedule a free consulting call through our platform right there, and you and I will brainstorm together for 30 minutes on what's the best strategy for your family. You could also, for privacy purposes, you can just do it through Signal. You can open a Signal chat with us and ask any questions you want. So that's probably the best places to reach out.
It's amazing. We will link to all that. Thank you so much, Katie. You're a rock star. I don't know how you do it all. Being a mom, having the kids, being pregnant, running the companies. Thank you so much. You're amazing.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
If you like that episode, then you're going to love the playlist we put together for you with our most recent podcast with the top Bitcoiners, sound money, liberty advocates in the world. Go check those out here. We'll see you inside. You're going to love them.